Greetings, survivors and friends, it's time for another Concept Limbo. Yeah, I know it's been a while, but I like to let them build up a bit, you know? So, as you probably remember, but will be forgiven just this once if you don't, Concept Limbo is a long-running series where I look at things that aren't in Rust, but tantalizingly could be. As most of the official concepts have either been covered or are actually in the game now, this episode will be yet another dive into the world of community concepts, mostly taken from that underpass of terror known as the Play Rust subreddit, showing that sometimes the odd diamond can be found in the roughest of places, such as in this episode, the final event, carrying players, and weather with teeth. As always though, I'm just here to show you this stuff. Some of it's a bit stupid, you might think it's a pile of poo, or game breaking, or you might think some of it's the most amazing thing since unsliced bread. Either way, why not let off that passive aggressive steam in the comment section below, because that's what it's for. To begin with, we received our first ever hazmat suit skin a few months ago. Well, I'd say received, Facepunch let us buy it, which was very kind of them, and now, if we want, we can wander around in a spacesuit and pretend we're Bruce Willis or something. How about though this idea, seeing as we've just had a big update with a very strong underwater theme, the team may have just missed a major opportunity to produce a hazzy skin of one of these bad boys. Imagine a Zerg emerging from a moon pool clad in this kind of gear. Terrifying. Actually, it may surprise you to know that way back in 2014, some official concept art was produced for something quite similar, and although this was most likely meant to be a functional item that eventually became the diving gear we know and love, perhaps this is a notion that could be revisited in some way, even if only visual. Or maybe dispense with the hazzy skin concept altogether and just make a tier 2 diving outfit, something with more protection in some way, maybe from sharks. Let me know what you think down below. Talking of which, next up, keep an eye on the Sky Traveller, but first a quick sponsor. This is you. The internet is your friend. In fact, with the internet, you're never alone. And that's the problem. If you'd rather not be watched while you're trying to do totally legal and above board things, then you need a VPN. More precisely, NordVPN. A virtual private network is like a special submarine that takes your IP address and data and hides it from prying eyes under the sea of information on its way to the underwater lab of wonders. NordVPN is officially the fastest one out there, letting you connect to well over 5,000 servers in 60 countries from wherever you happen to be. You want to binge on Rust flicks and finally finish that series? Location's no longer a problem. Want to play that game that's available over in Moldova? It's none of my business. You can use it on PC, Mac, Android, iOS, Chrome, and probably even a tricorder. It works whilst you're out and about, comes with a cybersecurity suite, an ad blocker, and can be used on up to 6 devices simultaneously with unlimited bandwidth. Best of all, if you're quick, you can get a 2-year plan for 73% off plus an extra 4 months, absolutely free by using my link down below or with code SHADOWFRAX. Back to the video. As soon as I knew sharks were going to be coming to the game, I knew one of the best shark movies ever made could soon become a reality. That's right, Shark Tale. No, of course, I mean Jaws. Sharknado 7, and I distinctly remember saying in an update vid, I'm just waiting for someone to make a Sharknado plugin. Well, that thought bounced out into the ether and has now bounced back attached to a mod, because just when you thought it was safe to go pretty much anywhere except the water, a plugin creator called Nikedemos is making it a reality. The twister will form offshore and head inland, meandering around, causing general mayhem along its path. The sharks will explode on impact with entities. You can shoot at them to damage the Nado and temporarily steer it away from you, but mind the ones that lunge themselves violently around kamikaze style. If you manage to damage the twister enough to kill it, the remaining unexploded sharks will drop dead on the ground with some goodies in their stomachs, so get out your sushi knives. It's basically the thinking man's heli event. That is, the thinking man who clearly thinks Rust isn't absurd enough as it is. He's still working on this one and it's not fully functional yet, so definitely subject to change, but it should be ready to use at some point soon, and I'll put a link to where you'll find all his plugins in the description. Honorary mention also goes to Wavy Davey, who contacted me with his take on a Sharknado, although I believe this one isn't a complete plugin, more just the effect. But you get the idea. In all seriousness, you probably wouldn't want to meet a real Sharknado, but perhaps an actual twister that could potentially cause damage might be your thing. Let me know what you think. The ability to remotely detonate explosives is next, and this does seem to get mentioned quite a lot. A recent post on Reddit at the start of this year expanded on the idea quite a bit, suggesting that a C4 could be tagged with a specific frequency for triggering with a transmitter and require extra tech trash, especially as the transmitter has kaboom written on it already. As with most things, I believe there's a couple of plugins that do this already, but if it were a proper feature of the game, do you think it would be open to too much abuse? Perhaps it could be used for some interesting traps, for instance, or a self-destructing base. Interestingly, on the roadmap, this very thing has been marked as being researched or thought about for quite some time, so maybe, just maybe, it will happen. Houseboats. Okay, I've kind of covered this concept before, but now more people are spending time at sea, and it's always nice to revisit and see a well laid out breakdown of how such a feature could work and ideas on how to prevent it from becoming too powerful. The foundation of the idea would require 2 new dock float pieces that could be placed on the water's surface. Okay, so that's pretty much a given, but there would be restrictions. Base size would be limited to 24 units, the float pieces would only be as durable as sheet metal, and decay times would also increase if you went too far from the island to deter oil camping. Some houseboat-specific deployables are suggested, such as an outboard motor to move it about and create a PvP version of RAFT, a special TC, not quite sure why that's needed, cleats to tie things to it or tie it to things, tow lines to tow other people's houseboats, not sure about that either, and an anchor to keep it in place. As the author points out, you wouldn't want someone towing you into a high decay area. Not that anyone would ever do something like that. What if I told you though that something similar is happening already thanks to another popular plugin by Sharknado man Nikedemos called WaterBases, and although these ones are static, you can craft and deploy floating sections in the same way, plus install ladder hatches and build down into the ocean. You can even place nets underneath and catch random stuff in them. Mad! I think there are some servers running it, and I'll put whatever details I can find in the description for you in case you're interested in trying it or getting hold of it for yours. Back to Reddit, and the next community concept I want to talk about is a final event, because at the moment Rust End games generally agreed to be the point where most players have either done everything or had everything done to them and collectively agreed to leave the server in search of a fresh canvas to pour survival paint on. A concept that popped up on the subreddit a few months ago aims to make this aspect slightly more meaningful, and a lot of replies said it was a good idea, but let me know what you think, of course. The idea centers around a large out-of-commission passenger rocket called the Russian Ulterior Space Transport, or RUST, the launch site, which has room for 8 passengers to leave the island on. Starting to get flashbacks to SOS here. Such a shame what happened to that. To escape the island, 3 components must be installed to make the rocket fully functional, and these will appear on the map one by one towards the latter part of the week. I'm not sure how hard they're supposed to be to get hold of, but as they'd all be visible on the map, keeping one at your base would paint a giant target on it. If a player or clan manages to get hold of all 3, they can then be installed into the rocket and a button pressed to start the final event. A crawler with the rocket on will then make its way towards the launch pad very slowly, taking 45 minutes to get there. Also, every 15 minutes of this, a Chinook full of scientists will deploy. No mention of what Bradley is doing at this point though. Once it gets there, a 15-minute window will start during which up to 8 players can enter and reserve their seats on the Rust. After a countdown, it'll then lift off, incinerating everyone in a 100-meter radius. But why would you want to do this? Well, the reward would be prestige, mainly, with your character and name being displayed on the server loading screen. Not sure what's going on with the legs, which, with the amount of time it usually takes to load in, would be quite a good advert. You'd get an achievement, at least for the first time, and the idea supposedly would give players more incentive to stick around later in the wipe. I can see some problems with this. As with everything else, clans would have all the advantage. I'm quite flattered that they thought a solo like me would be anywhere near good enough to grab a seat though. After a certain point, the event could happen at any time without warning, so it would be easy to miss, and once the ship has sailed, as it were, the server would probably die. As far as I can see, this is just swapping a vague and undefined end of a wipe for a more concrete one that will only be attractive to large groups, but not larger than 8 potentially. I'm sure it can be tweaked and improved as an idea though, so why not tell me what you'd change in the comments below. If you got carried away and got yourself all injured and unable to move and stuff, perhaps you could literally get carried away by a teammate. Now this is something I've seen plugins for before as well, but in addition to being able to crawl when downed now, what if a teammate could sling you over their shoulders and evacuate you from the area, albeit with a nerf to walking speed? Your fault for eating all the pies, naturally. This was the suggestion from a post earlier in the year, and the responses were many. Ideas ranged from carrying enemies back to your dungeon to using a comrade as a loot container, or even epic 2-man races and parkour. Well, Let me know your thoughts as always. I hope you enjoyed this slice of concept pie. If you did, please leave a like and sub to the channel for more. You can support me now directly on YouTube with channel memberships, or via Patreon, or even just nab yourself a subject to change mug or shirt. Up to you. Links below. Also to my social media where you can stay up to date with my content. I shall catch you all soon, but in the meantime, keep calm and stay rusty. And cheerio. This video is powered by AWDIT's producer range of workstation PCs, available now at awdit.co.uk.